and thanks for Richard for inviting me. The reason I'm here actually is you may have seen they changed the voting, the way we have to vote in the Commons. And the first time they did it, they had a queue which lasted about an hour and a half. And I was behind Richard, and he spent the whole hour and a half talking to me about this event, how fantastic it was, however, and so I couldn't actually refuse. But it's actually my first visit since we all closed down because of coronavirus. And I've only been in the job as the Apprenticeships and Skills Minister since February. So I only did one visit before then. So it's actually a huge pleasure to be here, huge pleasure to be with people, huge pleasure to see all the activity that's going on. And obviously, you know, we didn't expect to be here, right? We didn't expect to have to deal with coronavirus. So 6 months ago, we had nearly full employment across the country. We had the first sort of month of the job, I was looking at massive skills shortages in everything from engineering to digital and computing to the NHS, health and social care, teaching, pretty much all the professions I looked at. There was massive skills shortages, and to go from that to where we are now with all this uncertainty, it's absolutely amazing that, you know, all of the employers, the schools, all of you pulled together really to be able to offer those opportunities. And even since I've been going around, obviously I met Taylor and some of his very lucky degree apprentices who, if you've ever been in the right time and the right place doing a cybersecurity degree apprenticeship, now is definitely it, right? Because everything's gone digital. We don't do anything now that's not digital, and data as an asset is just going to become more and more valuable. And so we need Taylor and his colleagues to be protecting us from everything that can happen when we store our world online, right? So it's super, super important. But also downstairs we met somebody who actually was somebody who was served you, I think, who used to work at HSBC. HSBC have just made redundancies. She's here. She's doing some additional training that she's got access to, looking for a next career. So sometimes when these things happen and you do get made redundant, I speak to a lot of apprentices, older apprentices who've used the opportunity to actually get into a career they always wanted to get into. So she's actually very keen on project management, and she's done her Prince qualification, so I'm sure she will have no trouble. But it's all of that, making sure that we've got all of those schemes in place, all of that activity in place to find people at this time of high uncertainty. If you're a young person trying to work out what to do when you leave college or university, we were talking to a colleague of Taylor's, somebody on the course who, I think he said he did English, and he finished about 10 years ago, and but wanted to do something else, and now is doing cybersecurity degree apprenticeship. So all of these, there's so many different routes to where you want to get to and where you can get to in the world, and we're all living longer and doing lots more stuff. So there'll be many more opportunities to do that, and I think apprenticeships are a fantastic route. Obviously I was one myself. I left school at 16 in Liverpool. I went to a comprehensive school in Liverpool, and it wasn't the best comprehensive school, and you know, I thought the best way for me to get on in a career was to do an apprenticeship, and it became a degree apprenticeship. So I am a huge fan because it was a life changer for me, actually, as it is for many people.
And
so,
Gillian, that might be a good moment to ask people in the audience, how many people here have been apprentices themselves? There we've got a whole number of hands springing up. And how many others in the room are either training or employing apprentices at the moment? That's pretty well everyone in the room. So you're talking to a fully committed audience.
Yeah.
I guess one of the questions that some people have raised is the whole question of the apprenticeship levy, which is an important tax effectively on some of the bigger employers, some of whom are here and many in the stadium here today. Do you want to say a little bit about how this has evolved? Because there is this new ability to use part of the levy in order to ensure your supply chain, your contractors are taking on apprentices. Do you want to say a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was only an MP 3 years ago, and I've spent 30 years working for multinational businesses who've paid the levy, so I get the other side of the equation. And I know that there was a lot of, concern at the time to basically say, no, this is a tax, it's a tax on jobs, etc. But we all know, and if we look ourselves in the mirror, we definitely all know, and I was speaking to someone downstairs, we were saying, you know, we now have loads of apprenticeship standards and loads of apprentices because we have an incentive to spend the levy, and it probably wouldn't have happened without it. And we know that that created that incentive, and sometimes governments have to do that. But, of course, making sure it's flexible to be able to use as broadly as possible. So the first thing we did is make sure we had many more standards. So there's now 590 standards of all levels in all industries, and you know, any new standards can be developed with key employers that want to suggest standards coming forward. For the supply chain, it used to be 10% that you could pass on to your supply chain. Now it's 25%. But the most important thing, and there's always a request for more flexibilities, because of course every business would want many more flexibilities with that to do as much as possible. But I think there's two things to say there. The first is there's 2 years to spend the levy. 2 years is a long time in business. I've worked in business for 30 years. 2 years is a long time to get something done. So 2 years to spend a levy is the first thing. 25% can go on to the, you know, into the supply chain. But also this new incentive we've put in place, which is just £2,000 or £1,500 for older apprentices, which employers can use whatever they want for that. So they can actually get some of the flexibilities, maybe to unblock some barriers they may see in their own organisations. They can use that money how they like. So I think that has added flexibility, that additional money has given that flexibility as well.
That's fantastic. I mean, one of the biggest employers of apprentices in the county is the NHS. I think we were hearing earlier that there's something like 650 apprentices in all between the two trusts, the Hospitals Trust and the Health and Care Trust. I know that the Hospitals Trust in particular has had some challenges over the business of whether those people doing apprenticeships can actually use the workplace to do their study as well. I think you were saying earlier in a conversation with Stacey from the NHS that this is something that you've been working on.
Yeah, there was a couple of barriers in terms of shift management and off-the-job training, how you manage that with the nursing apprenticeships in particular. So we have put some additional investments to unlock that, and also with the NHS, we you know. I was a governor of a hospital, and I remember the first meeting I went to, they'd just come back from the Philippines, and they'd gone to the Philippines to recruit 140 nurses in my hospital trust in West Sussex. And I keep saying to the trust, you know, you have a massive levy and you're not spending it. They're now using it more and more in their supply chain, but we really do have to unlock that. One of the other issues we had, which we saw only with coronavirus, was the endpoint assessment for a nursing apprenticeship was different from the National Midwifery Council's assessment. So we brought those two together because obviously it makes sense to have those two as one. So we do listen and we do make changes and we do unblock those changes. But of course, I guess within an organisation, particularly as big as the NHS, they're massive levy payers, they're massive employers, one of the biggest employers in the world. It takes time to unblock all of those things, but I think, you know, certainly because it's integrated care systems probably here, this is probably one of the leaders in terms of employing apprentices across the NHS in the country.
Thank you. I mean, that might be a good moment, Stacey, to try and bring you into this. I'm just wondering whether we've got an additional mic that anyone has got. We haven't got another one, so I'm going to bring this mic over to Stacey while trying to remain socially distanced. Stacey, do you want to say a little bit about your experience and the NHS in Gloucestershire's experience of the apprenticeship scheme and how it's working, and give some feedback to Minister Gillian Keegan?
Yes, yeah, of course. So, hi everyone. So we are an integrated care system. You're quite right here in Gloucestershire, and that is formed through or by the Acute Trust, so Gloucestershire Hospitals, Gloucestershire Health and Care, Gloucestershire County Council, the Clinical Commissioning Group, and the South West Ambulance Service. So there's some key and very large organisations. We've got a collective levy across the ICS of in excess of £3.5 million. I was recently successfully appointed as our ICS Apprenticeship Hub Manager in April this year, and that role is to bring the ICS together with the main aim of spending our levy within our organisations, and also filtering that down to the smaller, to the SMEs within Gloucestershire to support their apprenticeships as well. We've seen a very, very big increase in requests for apprenticeship levy transfers across the last couple of months, and we are facilitating those. Hopefully, in the next few months, we will be using levy funds from one of the trusts or collectively to get up and running 10 or between 8 and 10 new pharmacy technicians across the ICS. It will be used as well. I know recently Gloucestershire Health and Care have funded 2 dental practices with some dental apprentices. Care homes as well. There's a huge call for level 2 and level 3 entry apprenticeships into care homes and other care environments. So for us, it's a really exciting time because we've got all this levy and we've got ways of spending it. They are very, very useful ways and means of bringing people into the health and social care sector. And it's not just doctors and nurses, that's something else to consider as well. Within Gloucestershire, there is a whole infrastructure supporting the health and social care system. So you've got administrators, you've got finance teams. Recruitment have never been so busy as what they have in the last few months. There's finance, there's estates, facilities, catering. So please, when you think of the NHS or you think of the integrated care system in Gloucestershire, it's not just doctors or nurses. We really are happy and willing to bring people into our organisations and train them through the apprenticeship levy and retain them as well. It's not just about bringing you in and training you and kicking you out the other end. We very much want to keep you as part of the ICS. So, yes.
Well, thank you, Stacey. I mean, that is amazing to hear, and I think it's one of the good examples, Minister, of where there are opportunities during this crisis, and it brings alive the range of different apprenticeships that are happening in this county. I wonder whether you'd like to react to that, and then we might bring in the University of Gloucester to talk about how they get involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, obviously there's been so much difficulty through coronavirus, but one of the opportunities is that I think it's been actually probably the best recruitment campaign for our NHS ever. And everybody, everywhere I go now, is kind of really inspired by the NHS and how, you know, they've been at the front line during this difficult time for our country. And it's, you know, everybody's now thinking of all the jobs. But as you say, Stacey, most organisations employ every range of jobs. I mean, you have digital apprentices in the NHS, you know, there's all kinds of, there'll be cyber security ones as well, because, you know, we've had attacks on our NHS actually. In fact, that was a foreign state attack on our NHS databases. So, you know, all of these apprenticeships, all of these opportunities, and the NHS is one of the biggest employers in the world, actually. I think it's the 5th biggest employer in the whole world. So there's a plethora of opportunities, and of course if you organise yourselves brilliantly, like you've done, and obviously got this kind of role, then you can make sure that that levy goes a long way to help young people train, and also people get a chance at a second career, which many people thought about the NHS and maybe didn't go into it, but would love still the opportunity to go into it, because I meet many people who've used the apprenticeships as a way to get into a second career. So well done. I'm sure you'll do a great job.